Hi there. It's so good to be back. I'm really excited today to be talking to someone that we're going to have probably a little different discussion today. My guest today is Rusty Diamond. Rusty, thank you so much for coming to join me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to be here. It's Friday or something like that.
It's a wonderful day. It's actually kind of sunny out finally. We've had a little bit of cooler weather, let's say. We are in fall after all, so that does
Sure.
happen. But I was honored to be on Rusty's show a few months back, and we
Thank you.
talked about him coming on the show because, in all honesty, I have to say I don't think there's anyone on this planet that does not, even for one moment, one day, in one year, have a struggle with their mental health. I
Sure.
don't believe in perfection when it comes to humankind. I believe that each and every one of us is flawed, some a little more than others, some differently. And those flaws are what make us interesting. You know, when you think about models and, runway models and people who are actors and actresses on TV, in actual fact, it's not perfection that gets them the roles. It is the asymmetry, it is the specific something in their makeup that stands out and comes through in photographs and in video. And as well, of course, personality goes along with that. I mean, there's so many facets. But even those that we look at and think, oh my God, they're so beautiful, they're so perfect, as people say, they too struggle. We all struggle because we all have a brain, we all have a heart, and we all have to make those things work together. And I think that that's probably part of what I want to ask Rusty today. But before, as we know, I can talk forever. Before I get off on the tangent, I just am going to turn the mic over to Rusty for a bit so he can give you a little idea of what it is that he does and where he comes from, and maybe a little more.
Ooh.
Rusty, it's all yours.
Who am I? Going deep question here. I am a human being who also gets to have fun times with mental health and sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes a little everywhere. Still knowing more and getting to know more about it. Even now, even what I thought was, like where I've been with mental health and anything like that. Like I've gone down some dark roads and that's I'm a bit of an entertainer or have been, still kind of am, and those getting done after like an adrenaline dump, having an adrenaline dump, going from on top of the world to waking up the next morning and your whole body is hurting, and you don't want to go anywhere. Your mind is just, it doesn't have that same dopamine it had. And I have the ADHD and autism, so like that's a big part of what I go for. And like I didn't find out I was autistic till I was 42. Just found that out a few months ago. That was an interesting one. And um, yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Let's see what else. I was a pro wrestler and a what's it called? A comedian, but I use both of those terms loosely. I don't know. I mean, I definitely I got to do most everything, be every position in wrestling besides booking shows because I used to book shows for comedy and for music, and I know that I wouldn't want to try that with wrestlers. So I wanted to stay away from that one. And then, yeah, then, so I mean, I used to be on the road from Thursday afternoon until Monday morning and go back to work for a few days driving a truck and delivering flooring. And then, yeah, I stepped in a hole one day. And so I went from never having a day off to sitting on the couch with a busted knee and no job, no wrestling, just to nothing, just went nothing. And I wasn't getting better, didn't know what was going to happen, didn't know where I was going to go, if I was going to get better. And this was, I was 35 maybe at that point, 34, 35. And I just got super depressed. I got just, I didn't know what to do. I hadn't sat at home forever. I was just always gone. And then being around people all the time, or being home, with my girlfriend at the time, all the time. And that was different and difficult for both of us. And I got really depressed and then started going to see a therapist. And I was so not into therapists. I tried someone I was a teenager and someone I was maybe like early 20s, late teens, and I just always had ones I didn't like. I just thought it was always a bullshit thing. And so then, yeah, I found out that uh, I needed to go because I was just fucking depressed. So I'll try it again. And so I'm in there in the waiting room the first day, and I get a message from my sister that these two people that I graduated with, because so this woman who I graduated with, she was working with her best friend, and so with her mom and as well as her best friend. And my sister was friends with one of the little brothers of like a sister-in-law or something. And so this guy who had been stalking her came up to the where she worked with her mom and her brother, came in and with a big gun, and she came outside and he shot her and then shot himself. And then so my sister is telling me this. I'm sitting there in the waiting room that first day, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is a good time to go in. And I didn't say anything to my therapist that day about it, which I probably should have, but I eventually did. But I got talking and I really liked her. I really was just able to open up with her and just feel like I could be real with her. And that was a big change from anything that I had ever had. And she gave me a book because part of the reason I was going was because I would take on a lot of other people's energy and people I didn't like. I am not good at faking that I like people. And so I would be with my girlfriend's friends, and I didn't like, and I liked maybe one or two or three of them. Most of them I didn't like. And so my girlfriend was saying, well, you're always like so good around your friends, but then when we go to hang out with my friends, you're a grump, and you just do, maybe you have some social anxiety and something. So I'm talking to my therapist, and she's like, yeah, well, here's how, like, don't take on their energy. Here's a book that'll teach you how to do it. And there was, and I didn't know what my job was going to be because I couldn't do anything physical anymore. And so in this book, there was two different jobs. One was a Reiki and one was a hypnotist. And so I was thinking, well, like I don't believe in any of that shit, but like a hypnotist, that could be an interesting thing. Being from wrestling, I don't believe 95% of what I hear and don't believe probably 90% of what I see. And so I looked up hypnosis training in Portland and called the first one and talked to the guy for about 20 minutes on the phone. He convinced me to come in there into his office and talk to him some more. And so I went in there a couple days later and talked to him about an hour and a half. Just fascinated with this because I just thought it was so fake. And I was telling him this. I'm like, I think this is fake. And I mean, obviously, he convinced me and is very good at hypnosis and got me to sign up for the training to be a hypnotist. And I signed up that day. And yeah, put my credit card down, paid that money. And I knew I was going to I had to pay it off. It was like $1,800, and I had just bought a car recently, my first car in 8 years. And it was like $1,700. So I had a little bit of money, but I needed to pay it off as I was going along through the class. And yeah, I put it on my credit card and got in, and I signed up and I loved it. The first time I got hypnotized, I fell in love, and everything we did in that class there was very little book work, very little. It was all just training each other, and it was amazing. And I was 100% sober at that time, and I would leave the place with this look and feeling of just, this feels so good, and come home, kept saying hypnosis is great. I wouldn't shut up about it. And eventually that became the name of my practice. And it's been nice, and I've been able to get out. I'm still loosely affiliated with both of those other things, but not really. And I've gotten, like, I don't like staying out late at night, and so both those things are kind of night things, so I don't tend to do them often. And this, I started doing it, and yeah, it's before Zoom was really a big thing. You were talking about Zoom, and like in 2018, 2019, and working with a guy who was, maybe we talked about this on my podcast, who didn't like leaving his house. Yeah. Yeah. And so just started doing that. And like the fact that I was in so much fucking pain physically, and I didn't have to go anywhere. I could be sitting in my bed with heating pads or ice packs, barely moving, but still being able to work with people. And I went in so many different directions. You can go and do the smoking and weight loss and probably do that for your whole life, and had plenty of people to do it. But I don't like doing either one of those. There's just so many different ways I wanted to go and have gotten to go. I've gotten to do crazy shit with it, just unreal things. And I'm still looking for more. I'm finding ways to add more and more to what I do. And, I like it. It's, I could do the stage hypnosis, but I don't really want to. You know, the performing background, but I don't want to do it. I love being able to do the clinical part and helping people, when I'm working. It's not every day I'm working, but when I'm working, I'm doing that and I'm helping people. And I know I can change someone in an hour and a half for what might take years and years and years and maybe get sort of there, but I can change someone's life in an hour and a half. And like, I love that. I love that I can do that. And I hope that it's always good to better yourself. And I wasn't always the best at that. And that's something I hope or work on myself, or know more things about myself that I should know. So that's sort of me, and I think I covered some things on there. I don't remember if I got all those questions, but I think that's kind of the short story of what it is that I do.
That was beautiful because yes, you
Thanks.
touched on all the things we can dive into. Because right from the very first time I heard about you in some podcast group, I was fascinated first by something I read because you were into wrestling. You and my son are the same age.
Okay.
Okay. My son has been into wrestling forever. He just watches. But that's his WrestleMania is around his birthday.
Ooh,
So that is a massive thing for him and all his friends, and has
sure.
always been. And never so happy as his youngest is very much into wrestling as well. So both boys actually like wrestling, but it's wonderful that the little one is totally into it, and it enjoys the whole concept.
Yeah,
Our family, somewhat like you, the comedic piece is woven through our whole family, always has been. And like you, I've done comedy in clubs. Like you, I've decided I don't want to go to work at 10 or 11 o'clock at night anymore.
right.
I just, I can't. And, you know, uh, I'm 69 years old now. I think, yeah, I should make that past my bedtime for during the week at least.
Yeah. I mean, even on the weekend, it's hard. We were up, like, there were a couple comedy shows that we went to recently,
Yeah.
and they were both around maybe an close to an hour drive, somewhere around there,
Oh,
back
wow.
home afterwards. And the and like, if I go to one of those, it's going to be a while that I need to have some time to get
Yeah.
back in the swing of things. But somehow ended up with 2 Fridays in a row of
Oh, wow.
shows that, uh, we wanted to go to, and it's like, well, shit, like, we should not do this for every reason of needing time to get back onto it, but these are 2 that we would want to see for a long time, and, um, yeah, it just I'm like, I can't do this like this even hard on the weekends, and it's like we
Hmm.
gotta stay somewhere. We ended up staying somewhere on the second one,
Yeah.
for the night, but yeah, trying to drive home that first night
Oh, yeah.
at,
That's
11 o'clock
yeah.
was difficult. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm usually in bed I go to bed 7:30 usually, and
Oh,
wake up
wow.
around like 4. Like, if I could do comedy at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe noon
Yeah.
somewhere, I'd be all about it. I'd be all about it, but there's not too many
Oh,
people. But maybe there is. Maybe it's a different crowd that needs to get in on it.
yeah. I was gonna say maybe you should start doing lunch hour laughs.
I would. That's
Lunch hour
you
laughs.
should too.
Yeah,
I
we should
think,
do that.
yeah, because who like
I like
it's.
that.
I do too. I would like to do comedy, and I would like to do it during that time. Whoever's
Yeah.
around, it might be people who don't get to go to comedy because it's too late. You can go
Yeah.
here at noon. And yeah, I think that would be
Oh,
a fun
I
one.
think that's
Yeah.
wonderful, and I think I'm gonna have to talk to some other comedians I know. Um, like you, I just went to a comedy show
Oh,
because this is a dear friend who's from Ottawa,
okay.
lives in LA. Her name is Lisa Gay Tremblay. She has been doing comedy for 40 years. She is very, very good.
Cool.
And she came back to Ottawa. kind of 40th anniversary, and she was recording her new album. So that was all done while we were there. So of course we had to go. But
Yeah.
like you, it's about 45 minutes there to go and 45 to come back. So I got home, I think closer to 12:30,
Oh,
and
geez.
then it's a few days to recoup because it's like, oh my
Yeah.
god, that makes for a long day. Because yeah, I'm usually up about, well, I don't get up till 6:37. So unlike
That's a
you,
pretty
I'm up
specific
later.
time.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
6:38 or 6:34 or something,
Yeah, no,
6:37.
6:30 or 7,
Yeah,
in
just
between, yeah,
yeah.
because chihuahuas. I mean, that's all I have
Oh,
to say.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but
understandable.
like we like to watch the late night shows, so
Oh,
it's not
okay.
like I go to sleep. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're, downtime starts by 11 at the latest for sure.
Whoa.
Without
Okay.
without the driving, and
Yeah.
it's the driving and all of that that's involved.
R
And I had there is nothing like an onstage high. There really
right.
is nothing.
Yeah. And
But it is, yeah, we really have to look into this lunch thing, but let's put that on a
yeah,
burner somewhere.
I agree. I think that would be a lot of fun, and, yeah, maybe somewhere,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking about this a little bit.
Oh,
I've been
cool.
throwing it around, yeah, I mean, even if somewhere out, in one of these, Amish community towns would be a fun one to get it out
Yeah.
there, and, yeah, just something, or, something close enough. I'm trying to get rid of my car and share a car, just go to sharing a car, because
Ah,
I really do not like driving. I wish if I could have one of those cars that everyone says, the robotic ones where it'll take
yeah,
you wherever, I would be all for it. It
yeah.
might kill me one of those times, but, you can drive and, you know,
It's worth it. It
yeah,
could be worth it.
I would love to, and I think a lot of traffic and stuff could be automated.
Oh, yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
would help out too. And then you wouldn't have to. I don't know, but it's hard saying that. There's definitely some of me that still would want to, but I've just had so much time driving, and at night with with the
Yeah.
lights that
Yeah.
cars have now, it's a whole different thing. It was very difficult, and somehow on that drive back from that first comedy show, there was hardly anyone behind me the whole way. I don't know how that happened, but
Wow.
yeah, I mean, anytime I'm driving at night or early in the morning, and I have some of those high,
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
really bright LED headlights on me, it just it throws me off, and so I
Oh, it
just
makes it hard. It really makes it hard to see. I find the LEDs, and if it's, God forbid, raining,
right,
it just makes it horrific for driving. And
yeah,
like you, I wasn't a trucker, but well, actually, that's not true. Funny enough, for a year, when my daughter, who's now 51, was little, I didn't want to work in an office. I just didn't want to do that. So I went to some people I went to school with, the Donnellys. Dan Donnelly, their dad, had this Ford dealership. And I went to him and said, look, I would like to drive your auto parts truck. And he said, that seems kind of odd, like, you went to Notre Dame. Like, I knew them because I knew his sons. And I said, well, I have a really good sense of direction. I know the city like the back of my hand. And I just think it would be an interesting job. And that way, when I'm finished, I can just go home and be with my daughter, and not, there's not like a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And I ended up being the best driver they had because I did know the city. I have an eidetic memory, so that's kind of cheating because because I remember all the shortcuts. I know, whatever. And I only have to go somewhere once to remember how to get back there,
Whoa.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Got me out of trouble once.
How so?
I accidentally left my wallet in a hotel in Montreal. I wasn't supposed to be in Montreal,
Okay.
and I certainly wasn't supposed to be in Montreal that evening. I hopped in our car. I had been to Montreal with a girlfriend like for 3 days before that, and we were supposed to be somewhere else, but that's a whole other story. I drove. It's only an hour and a half, 2 hours from Ottawa, but this was on the far side of Montreal from Ottawa, near then what was being built at Olympic Stadium was being built
Oh,
for
70
Expo.
something,
Yeah,
76, 72.
70. Yeah, I think it was 76, maybe 72, 76. Um, and I had never really been in Montreal except downtown, and we went by train. But we had driven there. Well, the train took us there those 3 days before, and I figured, okay, it's the Olympic Stadium. I know what direction it's in, and there are signs on the highway. I only took one wrong exit. I got
Whoa.
myself to the hotel, and coming back, I literally got my wallet, got in the car, got back on the highway to go home, and hit a horrific thunderstorm. And it was terrifying, and got myself behind this giant truck and just stayed there because it was pelting down rain so hard you couldn't see. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just awful. And I didn't have a choice. I had to get home because I was not supposed to be in Montreal, much less anywhere else. And
Right.
I did manage to get home by 10:30. And at the time, my husband wondered where the hell I'd been till 10:30 that night. And that was in 1975.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
different husband. Sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, but got home, made it back, got my wallet, and I was so excited, so thrilled with myself that I had driven right there with only one wrong turn, but I couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah, you got that.
Yeah,
The one wrong turn.
because well, I couldn't say anything about how great my driving was because then I was going to get in trouble.
Oh,
The end of
yeah.
the week, yeah,
Oh,
the end of
right.
the week,
Okay, that part.
he had to put more gas in the car, and I remember him saying, "I don't know what the hell's wrong with the car. We're going through an awful lot of gas."
Oh, weird.
Yeah,
Well,
weird.
I don't
Don't
know.
know why.
Yeah. And you're speaking more French. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So totally get the driving thing for you, and after a while, yeah, it's just not as fun anymore. We had
yeah.
children that were involved in a lot of different things, but our youngest was he did voiceovers for cartoons, and he did
Oh, wow.
commercials, and he did modeling, and well, they both did. We were forever driving to Toronto or Montreal, and also we had a children's wear store. So again, driving to Montreal and Toronto for shows, for buying supplies, and new clothes and all this kind of stuff. So there comes a point, I think, where you just that's enough. You just don't want to drive anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And yeah, it's not worth it. I feel like I think there may have been I've lost a couple of lives, and I don't know if I maybe switched timelines two
Yeah.
times. I feel like one time I was driving back from a wrestling show about 3 hours east of. It was like basically 3 hours east of Boring, Oregon, where I lived at that time, sort of near Portland. And
Boring?
yeah, Boring was the name of the town. It was Damascus, but then the city council decided that there had been too much corruption, so they completely dissolved the city, and we just got incorporated into Boring. And so its sister city is Dole, Scotland, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
My homeland.
yeah, and so yeah, that's you're over there. Yeah,
Oh
so
my God.
I I had one. I was driving back. The whole drive is along the Columbia River Gorge, which separates
Oh,
Oregon and Washington.
yeah.
And I think I was going maybe 80 or 90 on that road. And I woke up and the cop was pulling me over.
Oh my God.
And I was like, for speeding. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm so happy the cop pulled me over.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, so think that night maybe I did. And then I was driving in Iowa and I fell asleep maybe middle of the day and woke up driving through a cornfield and nothing was wrong with my car. I just ended up in a cornfield driving through it. And I was like, yeah, I think maybe twice something happened. And, things did get different after both of those times, but it could have been some other stuff too. But I don't know. It was an interesting time. So like, and I did so many late night drives back
Yeah.
during wrestling and driving all night, and it's just I feel like I've used up all my what ifs,
All
or
your what ifs.
it was
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. I think both of us have.
Yeah, I bet after all that, all
Yeah.
those drives, and yeah, it's a lot.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
So let's just touch on wrestling for a bit because that
sure.
really fascinates me.
Oof. Okay.
I,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, Andre the Giant,
Sure.
and it's terrible. I can kind of see the faces of a couple of others, but it sounds bizarre. But I worked at an asylum
Okay.
called Rideau Regional Hospital School, and I knew that Andre the Giant had acromegaly, which is an issue with growth, the growth hormone, and you overdevelop features and bones and what have you. And something about him really fascinated me because he was a really, really nice human being. Uh, you can read all kinds of stories about that man, but he was just amazing. And my dad watched a little bit of wrestling on Saturdays because my mother worked, and there weren't that many channels back then.
Right.
Canada, we didn't have a lot, but I grew up in Toronto, so Dad would watch a little
Okay.
bit of that, and he used to fascinate me. The whole concept fascinated me, and I don't know, maybe you can speak to the fact that boxing makes me ill to my stomach, but wrestling, there's a, I don't know, a certain tongue in cheek, maybe it doesn't
Sure.
seem as violent or
Yeah.
as intentionally violent. Maybe that's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some in both, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I don't know, yeah, because I mean, there's a lot different. There's not people getting. I mean, people get knocked down, I guess, but they're not getting knocked out
Brain
very
damage.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not as much. In a different way.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing. I've been going. There's a so there's a guy, Chris Nowinski, who he used to wrestle back maybe I don't know, almost 20 years ago for a short while. And he ended up getting a bad concussion and had to retire early. But he went to Harvard, and that was part of his gimmick too. And he started a thing. It was called, I don't know what it was called. Now I believe it's called the Concussion Legacy
Ah,
Foundation. um, and learned a lot with that. And that was kind of one thing that got me even scared when right after because that came out probably it was not long after I started training, and I had a couple friends who were close to my age who were wrestling, and they both got really bad concussions and had to retire.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, and so I was like, I'm gonna try to step back from doing a lot of physical stuff, and that's when I got into comedy because I still wanted to be able to be useful for wrestling shows because I loved the wrestling, and but I wanted to kind of steer clear more of the physical stuff. So I
Yeah.
got into comedy, and I was the weird wrestler doing comedy, and but yeah, I don't know. So then, but eventually, I ended up getting in the ring and then doing stuff. But I mean, the concussions and brain damage. I mean, there's some, and it doesn't take much. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. I played a lot of sports as a kid. I played lacrosse. I played soccer, and like they don't let you hit the ball with your head anymore. Like that's
No,
something they don't
no,
let you
no.
do. And I mean, playing lacrosse, I would get, I'd get knocked down a whole bunch in that one, and yeah, and I mean, just other stuff fooling around. I mean, the brain damage has definitely been something. And when I was a baby, I fell off a second story deck and landed on my head on concrete.
Oh,
And
oh my
so there's
God.
that too.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, so I mean, there's been a few things here and there. So like the brain stuff, like yeah, if I die one day, but when I die though, my brain's going to be studied. I have a thing in my wallet that they can have my brain. The rest of my body, I've gone back and forth about the organ donation because
yeah,
I I feel like, and this is another thing that I'm a little, you might not win the most likable person thing for this, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes with the like I've read some pretty bad stuff with the organ being an organ donor and kind of what happens with that. And so I've been kind of like I was very much like I'm like, sure, you can do whatever you want with my body when I'm dead, but now it's just my brain, the rest of it. Like I took it off it, and I
oh,
just I don't know. It seems like it's one of those things that's a good reason for having it, and I think it's a great thing, but I think the wrong people are into it, sort of like maybe like an Elon Musk and robotics.
yeah,
Very good thing, but I think it's the wrong person that's in charge
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Uh, Planned Parenthood, I think is another thing, and that's like it's a not a good thing, like it's there. It was put there for pretty nefarious reasons, and but like I want there to be services for that kind of stuff,
yeah,
but it should not be Planned Parenthood that should be doing
yeah,
it there.
yeah,
It's bad. It's real bad. And so I don't know, but like to go back to wrestling, to go from Planned Parenthood to wrestling,
yeah. Wow.
it's there's been a number of wrestlers and now rugby players, football players. There was a football player, Junior Seau, and because a lot of them get, pretty depressed and suicidal. There's a lot of
Yeah,
suicide with it, and he shot himself in the heart,
yeah.
so his brain would be preserved, so they could study it. And yeah, there's been, and then there's a wrestler who they probably killed his family and killed himself, and
Oh,
there
yeah,
was a big thing with that, and then they
yeah,
took his brain and saw how bad that was, and he had like the
Mm.
brain of an 80-year-old with
Yeah.
Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
and it is there's a lot, and I mean that scares me a lot, uh, and like I'm trying to I want people to I don't know because I don't want someone to have to because I don't what it's just I'm trying to preserve as much of it as I can
Yeah.
that's still left before it gets to a point where there's not much regeneration right now that is available. There's some
Yeah.
regeneration, but a lot of it once it's done is done, and um, I don't know. I mean, it's I've seen some people that they get head injuries and they become completely different people.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, um, we we support it. And I know most people who know me are going to find this bizarre, but I'm very much into bull riding.
Okay.
My husband and I,
Wow. Like
yeah,
you do it or you watch it?
I know, I watch it.
Okay. All right.
I did try bronc riding many, many, many
Wow.
years ago, um, and that was painful. Uh,
I bet.
yeah, I think I was 16 when
Whoa.
we went out, and I realized that I really don't like pain. I am a big chicken, so yeah, not for me.
Not the right one. Better to watch.
Yeah, and I had seen a bull riding competition in my teens because I rode horses,
Okay.
and for summers, my friends and I pretty much rode 5 times a week. Like we
Whoa.
were always out there.
Okay.
And I was riding a horse when I was 7 months pregnant, and my horse was pregnant, and we were racing with about 20 other people. And one of the new horses at the stable came up and kicked my horse and caught my stirrup. So it sent me flying, but he caught Pawnee in the stomach, and she ended up losing her colt. And
Whoa.
I hit the ground. I was already worried about my horse. So I don't even remember hitting the ground. And my friend said, I bounced up like it was like I hadn't even hit the ground. I bounced up so fast and turned around and ran to my horse. Everybody's like, Elaine, it's like up until that point, none of us thought of the fact that I was pregnant because the doctor had said, just keep doing what you're doing. He later said that he had no idea what I was doing was riding and racing horses, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, I was fine. My daughter is fine. My horse wasn't fine, and they ended up getting rid of the horse that did that. But all kinds of sports, like you don't realize how much danger there can be in just in 1 second. Everything can change, and hockey is a big place for concussions.
Yep.
There's hockey and football, and you know football in Britain, what we called headering the ball was,
Right.
you know they use their heads for a lot of stuff, not just on the football field, but like fighting. That was a move. I can remember
Yeah.
teenage boys in Scotland having fights with other gangs, and oh my God, I mean, you could hear the skulls crack when they were hitting each other with their heads. We seem to, as we progress and as we know more, we learn more of the things that are important and that we shouldn't do. But even when someone has a concussion that you don't really know a lot about, it can change their personality.
Right.
And back to the bull riding. there was a young up and coming rider. He was really good. His name was Ty Posabon, and he's Canadian. He rode in the PBR. He rode in Canada. He'd been at the Calgary Stampede. His sister was a barrel racer, and they're wonderful people. And he took his own life uh, after a number of concussions, and it's just it still breaks my heart that this young man who was full of promise felt so alone. It's another one of the reasons I do this show.
Yeah, there's not a lot of talking. A lot of people don't want to come out and say, "Oh yeah, I've had a whole shit ton of concussions and it
Yeah,
fucked me up."
yeah,
Let me tell you. Not a lot of
yeah.
people want to say it. I'll say it. I'll say it.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sure it's
Hello. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, fuck up number two right here.
yeah,
Okay. Yes, over the years, I have had concussions. That like I said, I rode horses. I tried bronc riding. I was a figure skater. I skied.
oh,
I had multiple encounters with vehicles that were not good. So yeah, concussions have been a part of my life too. And there's an awful lot of people that had a concussion and didn't even think about it,
well,
because it's only the past few years that they're starting to study these things and realize just how detrimental that can be. But
yeah,
again, it comes back to what you and I were talking about before we even came on air. And that's the fact that no one tells you how to drive your brain.
right.
A
And
little nod to Rex Sykes. He's the first one that I talked about this with, is that we don't get a manual. We and more than a manual, we don't teach it in school. You have the most powerful computer known to man inside your head. We barely use a fraction of it. And yet nobody thinks to tell people, here, if you need to be careful with this piece of equipment, because
yeah,
it runs everything you do. And we come out, and the more we learn, the more we're understanding that a lot of what we thought was true isn't. The vagus nerve, now people are talking about the vagus nerve. It's an awful lot more important because it's attached to the brain. It's its own brain for our digestive system and more. and
right.
and we're only starting to learn that too.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that you can look back and be like, "Oh yeah, like that makes a lot of sense." And okay, well, now it's I hope that the conversations get out, and if it's not, maybe it's by chance someone gets to hear people talking
Yeah,
about it and find out, because yeah, I mean you have to seem to be doing your own research to be able to find out about either one of these, and it's unfortunate, and it's keep it on, and just being able to, without like being able to, I don't want to say reset your vagus nerve, but be able to slightly alter it in a
yeah.
positive way.
And
um
people do call it that, Rusty. They do say resetting the vagus nerve. In my case specifically, a doctor mistakenly cut my vagus nerve. And
Whoa.
that, in all the butchered surgery, was part of the problem, because of course he didn't want to acknowledge that, or any of the other damage he had done.
Right.
But even then, okay, 1983, they didn't know enough about the vagus nerve to understand what the long-term ramifications might be, or would there be any. And as you well know, I'm out of work at the moment. I'm recovering after yet another surgery, and we are talking 1983 to now. is a hot minute.
Yeah, 6, 7
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, yeah, just a few, just a
Yeah,
few. Yeah,
yeah.
decades.
It
But it is all part of, I think, as adults in this day and age, we need to do more research.
I
Okay. And
100% agree. Or
I'm the first
yeah,
one to say thanks for Google. Thank you, Google, because you can go deeper down these rabbit holes and find out information. I am not saying believe everything you read or see or hear. That is not at all what I'm saying, because everything you have to take with a grain of salt.
yeah, but
Okay. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter how truthful I try to be or you try to be. We bring to the table from our perspective.
yeah,
And
and
it's always tainted with our perspective, whatever that may be. I'm not saying things are wrong. I'm saying it may have a slightly different slant than someone else. And that's kind of what we have to look at. But the commonalities that we see when you talk about wrestling, when you talk about rugby, and we talk about football and hockey and boxing, God help us. I mean, that was the first sport where people could see and understand that concussion and brain injuries were part of the territory, if you will.
punch drunk.
Yeah, yeah. It only makes sense. If you're
Yeah,
going to sit there and hammer my knee for 10 rounds 3 times a year, I am going to have an issue with that knee. I
yeah,
can guarantee that. So if you're going to pummel my face the same, the brain and injuries in the brain are caused by that, the shuckling of the brain inside the skull, and there's not a whole hell of a lot of room for it to move in there.
right. And
So that
yeah,
inflammation and that those issues, I think they get multiplied every time you land another punch, if you will.
yeah. Well, and I mean, they used to have the term "getting your bell rung,"
Yes.
or seeing spots or
Seeing
anything,
stars.
seeing
Yep.
stars.
Yep.
Those are all concussions.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the closer of a time frame that you get them to, if you get, that's how people
Yes.
end up dying. There's like if you have like within a week or two, it happens in. I see it in sports.
Sport.
High school
High
sports.
school.
It
Yeah.
seems to be
Yeah.
a thing where that happens, and that's something that's only now starting to be looked at as well.
Yeah. And only now are you seeing people in wrestling and football and hockey and what have you considering stepping out in
Yeah,
order to save their health. Because
it,
it used to be, no, I'm playing at all costs. This is my
that's all I
ticket
know.
to whatever,
Right?
which is horrific. But yet I can understand, somebody comes from nothing and wants to bring their family with them and make it right for everybody. Those are the stories that you hear, those are the ones that you see. But all of this, and not in the languaging necessarily that we're using, but understanding the bad things that can happen in the fun things that we do, and being more mindful of how you do things. We have to start with children. We have to
Agreed.
teach them to be more self-aware. And I think that comes back to you saying exercise. When you start with children early exercising, you are increasing their core stability. You're teaching them how to, teach them how to fall properly, teach them how to, guard themselves
Yeah,
when they're running, teach them how to, handle falling to the ground or perhaps hitting
that
their head, and being able to go tell an adult that this happened? How many
Yeah.
times does it happen and kids just don't tell anybody?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, man. How many kids fall and break their arm, or, you
Yeah.
know, skating around,
Yep.
either skating or playing hockey or whatever and slip and
Skiing.
or
Yeah.
skiing and just like, uh, I have a buddy and I remember him going off this huge jump and then he immediately knew he was just gonna eat it, but I just saw him just go completely limp and just, uh,
Yeah.
like land totally fine. And my hypnosis teacher told me that when you get in a car crash, or he got in a car crash, and he said he just loosened up, let the like barely held the wheel and just said, "Let's go, let's have fun," and just woo, spun around and then
Yeah.
he was fine. And like that's why, you know, drunk people when they get
Are
crashed are
tend
usually
to, yes,
fine. And
exactly, exactly.
yeah, it's yeah,
It's when you
I think
tense
yeah,
up.
yeah, teaching people to fall right would be a great idea. Or yeah, how to yeah, how important core strength and core strength is, and
Well, yeah, we give
even as
driving
adults.
lessons.
Yeah,
Okay, you can't get you're supposed to get an animal and get a license. Okay, there are handbooks for cats, dogs, birds, fish, you name it. There aren't for children,
no, uh, there
you
should
know.
be.
Yeah, there
It's
really
time
should be.
now. Here we are. Another
Yeah.
thing to add to our list.
Oh, well, yeah, and the fact is, okay, you're a curious person. I'm a curious person. So for us, learning about stuff is it's intrinsic. It's like breathing.
Yeah, what we care
Okay.
about.
Yeah, I need to. I mean, it's in my in anything about me. It says I want to increase my awareness or knowledge 1% every day. I do because I'm just that curious.
Me too.
And
Yeah.
there's so much to learn.
Yeah, it's easy now to learn anything.
Oh
And
my God, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, going back to AI and Chat GPT or whatever
Yeah.
you're using, being able to take ideas you have and being able to have something with it that can make that idea a whole lot better that you would never be able to think of. And then so rather than being on step two, you're already like at the top of step three and you're ready to go to that next step. Whereas you might not ever get past step two in your life, but now in this
Yeah.
short little bit, if you know how to do it and it's for good, you can go and just you
Oh,
can go right forward and you can learn a lot of stuff. You can make a lot of things way better. I'm always wanting to know how to make things more efficient too. Like
oh,
efficiency is a
absolutely.
and
And what I like about ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of them,
yeah,
okay, is the fact that you can give your ideas, and if you're only on step two or wherever, but you can ask for citations that will give you, are there white papers written on this? Has someone looked at this before? Give me some really good quotes that relate to my full blown concept. And
yeah.
and the last thing I like to do after I've written something is, what am I missing within this concept? What is
Ooh,
it that I'm missing?
that's a good question to throw at the end.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because you can get some really fascinating answers.
I I heard one the other day that was there was two of them. There was one, what what can you tell me about myself that I don't know about myself that you've gathered
Yeah,
from
yeah.
what we've talked about. And then the other was, if I was going to pivot into a new job or new position, what would that be that I would never think of? What would
Oh, I
be,
like that.
yeah, based on what we've talked about. And it was cool getting those answers. It was because I don't know, and I feel it's the same thing with that. Like get very introspective into it, um, and when I talk about doctors, or I would rather go to an acupuncturist and tell the acupuncturist what's going on, as opposed to any doctor, because they're there treating the root of the problem, and the more I tell it, the more they know what to do and what can be done, and putting that into ChatGPT, act as my acupuncturist, Chinese herbalist,
Yeah.
all that Eastern, but with, whatever, and like, here's what's going on. Tell me what else you need to know that will give you a better idea of what you need to know to better help me out,
Yeah.
something of that nature. And just being able to do that that's really fun for me. I enjoy the hell out of it, and getting to
Well, having a better understanding of how you work. Now,
right.
I'm just going to put a caveat there.
Sure.
Okay. Um, Rusty and I are not saying to use Chat GPT to supplant the medical system or your health advisor or your therapist or
Right.
your acupuncturist or anyone else. This is as an adjunct to what you can learn. So when you do go for treatment, or that you do go for treatment
Yeah.
based on this new information that you have,
Yeah.
it's not about trying to do it all yourself. That's definitely not what we're
Yep.
saying, because acupuncturists and Reiki masters and hypnotherapists all have their
You-
place,
Yep.
and they are super important.
Uh,
And
totally
I
agree.
could keep you forever, but I'm
Yeah.
going to wind this visit down for now. I would love to have you back.
Sure.
I'll
Anytime.
say that right off the bat. But when you talked about smoking and weight loss for
Yeah.
hypnosis, back in 1989, my friend called and said, "Look, we get a discount if we take 6 people. We're going to go to this stop smoking hypnotist tonight, okay? And we'll save money if we get 6 people." And I
Smart.
wasn't ready to quit smoking, hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah.
Um, Cigarettes were still relatively cheap at that
Yeah.
time. But I thought, okay, whatever. It was like $47. I said, yeah, okay, I'll go. And she said, okay, Carl's just going to call your hubby. I said, well, that should be an interesting call. And I just heard, fuck you, from the office behind me, and knew that Carl had called and my husband was not going to be one of the 6. He enjoyed his smoking, and he was not at all interested in quitting. So I went, and there were 5 of us, and we still ended up with the discount. And the hypnotherapist, it really surprised me, because I thought what I thought was 5 minutes was 30 minutes. And he sent us home, and this is how long ago, with cassette tape. And the idea was you were to listen to that cassette tape every morning for a week.
Cool.
And
Sure.
my family made fun of me every morning for a week as I listened to what they said sounded like whales. But I went home, and my husband was at the neighbors a couple of doors down. I walked into the neighbors, and I put my pack of De Maurier, the silver
Yeah.
ladies package,
Yep.
on
I
the
know.
table, and I said, "Here you go, Barb. I'm a permanent non-smoker. You can have my cigarettes." And they all laughed, because at that point I smoked almost 3 packs a day.
Wow.
Yeah, which was not good.
Du Maurier.
Du
Yeah.
Maurier, I think they were called extra lights, but it was a silver
Okay.
package with a burgundy ribbon on it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
girly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a girlfriend.
Ah, there we go.
She was from Toronto, and
Yeah.
she would smoke those. So
Yeah,
yeah.
before that, I think it was Virginia Slims,
Okay.
but All that to say, I am still a permanent non-smoker.
Wow. That's yeah, just
And
that
I am the
half hour.
only one of the five
They
who
weren't
stopped
ready.
smoking. And I'm the only one of the five that went not planning to stop smoking.
Right. Which I probably would have told you to not even come. I would have said, "Don't come. I don't want to."
Well, I was saving them $15
Yeah,
each or
no,
something.
you
But
got the best deal out of that.
oh, I did. And it was an introduction to hypnotherapy for me. And I
Okay,
thought,
yeah.
well, hang on, if it can do this. So after um, my uh, a bunch of surgeries, I had dealt with a hypnotherapist who put together some guided meditations for me to
Mhm.
use to manage pain, and super, super useful.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Hypnosis is great.
Oh, it
Uh,
absolutely is. So I wanted to be sure and circle back to that
yeah,
because I
get my
think what
plug.
you do is wonderful.
Thank you.
And yeah,
Likewise.
this has been a very interesting episode. I thank you ever so much. And yes, we will definitely do this again. Rusty Diamond has been my guest. You will find all of his information below the podcast and also how to contact him. And there will be what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, any special links that he wants you to have, we'll make sure that they are available as well. You do have a number of things that you do, which I think is fabulous, including your podcast.
Yeah,
And we will make sure that the podcast is there and available as well.
your episode is on there. Oh yeah, I'll link that episode. So if you're going to listen to one, you can listen to the one with Elaine.
Well,
What you should
thank
be
you.
doing.
That's very nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
So, once again, I want to say thank you so much to Rusty and to our audience. And I want you to make the very best of your today, every day. And we're going to see you next time. Bye for now.